Live from Utah's Wasatch Front, the pulse of the Mountain West, where the issues that shape your life meet the truth that sets you free. Across Utah, across the Republic, and around the world, welcome. This is KMMU.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Goud Crowd. I am your host, Goud. Okay, let's start with we're going to talk today about Rule 60B motion that we filed in a case for Michael Clara. I was going to say Michael Grandma, but it's Michael Clara. But before we get to that, I got a few little housekeeping issues. So I want to start by just thanking everybody that listens to the show. I appreciate that. I guess Mr. Producer wants me to let you know that I am a ghost today. It is true. I don't understand. So for those of you who watch, there's something weird with my camera. And when we put up the virtual background, you can see I'm like kind of ghosty. I don't know what it is. But I guess my camera is not any good, which is unfortunate because my computer is actually, as many of you know, pretty new. So I guess the camera's not that great. But anyway, I want to do a few housekeeping issues. I think I'd like to hear more from people in terms of what you guys would like to hear on the show. So we kind of, just depending on how things go, every single, like where I'm going is just kind of where I feel like going. I mean, just to be honest with you, and things that I think you'll find interesting. So this week we'll talk about the 60B motion, and we've got a few other things that we'll also talk about. We have interviews coming up. So next week, Mike Carey has agreed to come on and he'll talk about housing. He's actually really, really good on that topic and has very deep knowledge about it. And then the following week, Natalie Klein and Monica Wilbur will come on to talk about education issues. And then I was thinking I'd like to do a few more kind of book episodes where we interview authors about books, because it seems like the one with Trent Staggs got a lot of interest from the audience and interaction, which makes me think maybe people want to hear more stuff like that. So I thought we could bring David Chadwick back. I'll read Monkey. We'll have a discussion about that. I have another local author. The name is not. Her name is not in my mind, but I have her book, and I'd also like to bring her on because she has an interesting backstory. And so we can keep going down these things. I would like to hear from you. I'll just say some of the topics I'd like to get into as we kind of keep moving, but sometimes they're getting kind of pushed to the right, is I think we have kind of a weird cultural thing going on in Utah where women claim that they have been sexually assaulted by men. And I'm not 100% sure that all of these claims are true. And I think there's a cultural push where we just believe them and we should not. And so I'd like to delve into that a little bit. So talk about, the BYU quarterback is one example. This Tim Ballard thing is another example potentially. And there's other ones as well out there. We need to talk about this and figure out, is there a cultural problem? And do we need to question people? Like you should, I mean, my own view is you shouldn't believe anybody because people lie all the time. And certainly just because someone's a woman does not mean that they're going to be any more honest than a man, right? Like women lie all the time. Look at Lieutenant Governor Henderson. She's a queen of lying. Okay. So that's kind of a little bit of housekeeping. I'd love to hear from you guys. Yes, Alex, nobody is watching except for you. Okay. So anyway, this basically on Friday, I entered my parents as Michael Clara's attorney in a lawsuit that he had filed. It's Clara versus the Attorney General's office. And this had been filed last year, and it has to do with the grandma request that he filed, where he was seeking, let me think, I have the words here. I want to tell you the exact wording of this because it's kind of important. Hold on. He filed a grandma request seeking records of the investigation pertaining to the signature gathering nominating petitions for Spencer Cox for the 2024 election cycle. And just kind of like the short version of this, it goes through the full grandma process with the Attorney General's office before the State Records Committee, and then in front of the district court. At every juncture in the process, the Attorney General's office says that there are no responsive records to his request. after that whole process happens, and we'll go through more details of this. I'm just going to give you kind of a big overview. After the entire process happens and the district court enters judgment in favor of the Attorney General's office, a whistleblower comes forward and gives Michael a copy of the report that he had specifically asked for. That report shows that 18 of Governor Cox's signature petitions were investigated as part of AG 24170. That report and the supporting documents to it are all responsive to Michael Clara's grandma requests. And they should have been disclosed during the grandma process, but they were not. And so after he got the whistleblower disclosed that copy to him, he and I were talking, and I was looking at ways to potentially go now and try to fix what had happened, right? Because, what they did in front of the court is they misrepresented what documents they had and whether they had responsive documents to Michael Clara's grandma request. Well, as a lawyer, or actually really any party, you're not supposed to make misrepresentations or lie to the court. And so now we're trying to go back and see if we can fix that. The way that we've kind of gone about this is filing what's called a Rule 60B motion. And we've done it based on two bases. One is 60B2, which is the discovery of new evidence, right? We got new evidence. And then that'll be the whistleblower's report. And then 60B3, which is misconduct of the opposing party, which is what I think the evidence shows the Attorney General's office was engaged in. At its heart, just so everybody is clear, the motion and what we're trying to do here is not about reversing the 2024 election. Utah law does not have any sort of mechanism to do that. What we're trying to do is to protect the grandma process, because the grandma process doesn't work if agencies are able to lie to you about whether they have responsive documents to a request that you have submitted. And that's a key point. Right now, if what happened in this case is allowed to stand, it means that agencies in Utah, when you file a grandma request, if they don't want to respond to you or they don't want to give you the information, they can just say that they don't have records and there's nothing that you can do about it. And so we have to get this situation hopefully fixed in order to ensure the integrity of the grandma process going forward. And I am a lawyer, and so I just want to be really careful here. I think sometimes when people talk about motions, cases, things that they're working on, they're a little bit too much like definitive about where they think it's going to end up, right? And I'll just be honest with you, I don't know where this ends up. I think we have a very solid motion and that the court should grant it. But obviously, I don't control what the judge is going to decide. In this case, she gets to make her decision, and she'll do it based on the arguments submitted by both parties. We've just filed the motion, and the motion is public. The Attorney General's office will be able to file an opposition, and then we'll file a reply brief. So just so you understand the process. The court may have oral argument. It's up to the judge whether she wants to do that. And then it's submitted for her to make a decision, and we'll get, I would assume, a written decision, whichever way she decides to go. So that's kind of just a little bit of disclaimer that, sometimes I think lawyers lawyers can be a little bit too like, it's 100%, we're going to do that. I'm not like that because I have practiced law long enough to know that nothing is guaranteed. Okay, so let's talk background facts, because I want you to really kind of understand what happened here. And I think that'll help you kind of frame this and realize why the motion is important and why trying to fix the problem is important as well. Mr. Producer says, don't judges have to comply with the law? I mean, if it was that simple, we wouldn't need judges, right? I mean, the reality is like, she may see it differently than we see it. It's not, like I said, I think we have a very solid basis for her to, and just to go back, a 60B motion is saying to the court, we are asking you to relieve Michael Clara of judgment. That means reopen the case, and allow him to now go back, conduct discovery, and figure out what documents the Attorney General's office has that are responsive to his grandma request. Because to date, the Attorney General's office hasn't produced a single document that is responsive to his request. Okay, let's do a little storytelling. I'm going to tell you about what happened, and then I think you guys will understand why we did the 60B motion route here. Okay, so what happened here is that I gotta find my spot. Okay, in May of 2024, Michael Clara learns that there is this criminal investigation going on into Don Ipsen's signature petitions in Washington County. Okay, Don Ipsen is a sitting senator. He ended up being short the signatures he needed because the company who gathered signatures is called The Gathering, and they failed to gather a sufficient number of legitimate signatures. They had more than 30% of the signatures in Don Ipsen's petitions were fraudulent. We're talking big numbers here. This isn't a small 2%. I guess we have Alex Thompson is very active today on the comments. But let's see here. Oh, okay. So anyway, so 30% of the signatures are fraudulent. Now, according to Tanner Leatham in the 24-170 investigation, he says he normally expects about 15% of the signatures to be kicked. So he was surprised when it ended up at 30%. So that's significant. That's a huge number. 30% is, that to me is widespread fraud at that point. At that point, Michael starts to dig deeper because The Gathering is the same company that Spencer Cox used to gather his signatures. And Natalie Clausen and Phil Lyman had been looking into the issue of whether Governor Cox actually had the number of signatures that he needed to be placed on the GOP primary ballot. And this is actually really important. The reason is they got wiped out at the convention, right? They did not get at least 40% of the delegate vote, which meant the only way for Governor Cox and Lieutenant Governor Henderson to get onto the primary ballot was through the signature path. That's important. And that shows you how critical it is that the signature path have no fraud in it. Because if it has fraud, as is what happened here, it means that they have basically found a way to circumvent the convention without having to actually collect legitimate signatures. So after this, Michael Clare is doing the investigation, and there's a few other people involved as well, and they're being very public about it. So it's out on X. People are paying attention to what's going on. He learns in July of 2024 that multiple individuals in Vineyard had been contacted by a special agent, Mikkel Jordan, and specifically, Special Agent Jordan went to their homes and asked them about their signatures on Governor Cox's signature petitions. And let me just add, that's key as well. So Melanie Yates says, even though the goal isn't to overturn the election of Cox, I wish we could. Everybody does. We have had an illegitimate governor this whole time. Yes, I agree with you. But the law doesn't provide for that, and so all we can do is learn from what happened and make sure he does not go any further than this. Well, okay, so as part of this, so Mikkel Jordan, the special agent, goes to various people's homes in Vineyard, shows them Governor Cox's signature petitions, and says, "Hey, is this your signature on here? We think it's forged." These individuals confirm that it is forged. Their signatures were forged on Governor Cox's petitions. Multiple people in Vineyard have this happen. She also leaves her business card with them. So here's her business card. And this is critical. By the way, for anyone that's going to freak out that I'm showing her business card, this is public information. And what's important here is that if you look, she has written on here, AG 24170. That is the case number that she is that her investigation is under. That's what it's called. So, and she gives this business card to the individuals that she has questioned. Michael Clara gets in touch with some of these people because, as you know, people are talking about this and it's out there. He ends up talking to a woman named Mary, and I'm gonna keep out her. Yeah, I'm gonna keep out all the, like I may be using a fake name, but Mary, and she talks to Mary's husband as well, and we'll call him Chris. And they confirmed that, yes, Special Agent Mikkel Jordan came to our home. She asked us questions about our signatures on this petitions. On Governor Cox's signature petition, she showed us Governor Cox's signature petition and asked if these were our signatures. They were not. And in fact, we did not sign any petitions at all. The reason why the signature gatherer knew that their names was because the gathering, the company that hired them, had given all of their signature gatherers access to a database that has your personal information in it. So they could go and they could collect these signatures, right? So, and let me say, this is a side note, but for all of you out there who are constantly talking about how you're concerned about your privacy with voter rolls, I'd like to know, why are you okay with signature gathering companies getting your personal data and giving it to random people that they hire? As they hire these people as independent contractors, literally after every single election. We have multiple signature gatherers being criminally prosecuted for all sorts of different types of fraud. Why are you okay with that? Like, do you honestly think that they're protecting your information? And for the left, that freaks out, and the left and the establishment Republicans are basically the left, who think that we can't give our voter rolls to the Department of Justice, right, to the Civil Rights Division run by Harmeet Dillon, who I actually think is probably one of the stars of this administration. You think that's a problem because of your personal data, but you don't have a problem with the gathering having your data and then turning it over to these random degenerates who turn around and commit forgery and who knows what else they do with your personal information. I don't really have a full sense of it. I don't think you know. And so that's a side note, but something to think about. Okay, so after Michael has this discussion with them, Mary sends Michael the business card. So now he has a business card, and he files a grammar request on July 8th of 2024 with the Attorney General's office. That grammar request says, I want all records of the investigation pertaining to the signature gathering nominating petitions for Spencer Cox for the 2024 election cycle. He doesn't say in his initial grammar request anything about AG 24-170 or that he knows about Special Agent Jordan going and asking questions of these people. So at the time, the records officer for the Attorney General's office was Lonnie Pearson. Right now, you may know that name because Lonnie Pearson was promoted after this, and he's now the director of the Government Records Office. So maybe like promoted is maybe rewarded. He was rewarded for what he did in this case. And so he's actually, like after all of this happened, part of what the legislature did in their reforms is they actually disbanded the State Records Committee and created this new Government Records Office where they have a hearing officer who is a lawyer. And that's supposed to be like an administrative law judge who now decides appeals for the chief administrative officer within an agency. The idea being that they wanted to have more uniformity. I will say it kind of worked out in one of the cases that we recently had where I represented Phil and we were trying to get Eric documents from the Lieutenant Governor's office. We actually got a ruling in our favor from that agency. So maybe there's some value to it. I don't know, but I think there's some issues with Lonnie Pearson being in this position at this point. So Lonnie Pearson gets the request. What we later learn when the Attorney General's office files a second amended motion for summary judgment is that Lonnie Pearson, in that motion, they submitted a declaration from Lonnie Pearson, and he talks about the search that he did when he got Michael Clara's grammar request. First, he goes to Assistant Attorney General Scott Cheney, and Scott Cheney is actually the one that's giving advice to the lieutenant governor's office about election law issues. And Scott Cheney responds, I don't have anything. I have no documents that are responsive to this request. Okay, that's his response. It's a little bit surprising because we recently got another report, 2024-320, where Scott Cheney says, and I guess I don't know exactly what to think about this yet, but he actually kind of indicates that he was doing research about whether whether names could be removed from the ballots at this point in time, which suggests to me that he had responsive records at least at some point in time, and he potentially didn't actually provide them. We don't know for sure though, because a part of the thing is that Lonnie Pearson doesn't actually provide a copy of the email that he sent to Assistant Attorney General Cheney. So we don't know exactly what he asked for. And so I don't know what Cheney is actually responding to. The second person that Cheney reaches out to, or not Cheney, sorry, Pearson reaches out to is Pelican. He's this guy Pelican, whose name I somehow missed here. But it says he's like the secretary of the investigations division, which is where Special Agent Jordan works. And Pelican comes back and says, we have no response. Actually, Pelican doesn't come back and say, sorry. In response to the email to Pelican, we also don't have a copy of that email as well. They didn't submit the actual email. They kind of selectively quoted from it, but they didn't give us the full email. So we don't know what Lonnie Pearson asked Pelican for. But anyway, the division chief, Leo Lucy, tells Pearson that there are no records responsive to the request because any Attorney General's office investigation involving signature gathering was not related to Governor Cox. So that's very specific, right? So then on July 22nd, 2024, Mr. Pearson responds to Michael Clare and he says, the Attorney General's office has processed your records request submitted July 8th, 2024, seeking, quote, records of the investigation pertaining to the signature gathering nominating petitions for Spencer Cox for the 2024 election cycle. Despite a reasonable search, the office found no records responsive to your request. This completes the response to your request. The office has waived any fees for this request pursuant to whatever, it's a statute. Okay, so no responsive records. None. Okay. Now, let me just add, one thing that you'll see here, well, he doesn't do it here, so I'll get to that. You'll see. They'll try to narrow the scope of the request, but even in the narrowed scope, what we find is that they still had responsive records that they should have produced. So on July 23rd, 2024, after receiving this response from Mr. Pearson, Michael Clara then appeals to the chief administrative officer of the Attorney General's office at the time, and that's Daniel Burton. Now, today, Daniel Burton has also been rewarded or promoted, and now he is the chief deputy of the Attorney General's office. So, and what you're going to see is that Daniel Burton also misrepresents what the Attorney General's office has, and that's a problem because now he's actually been promoted to a higher position within the Attorney General's office. What's interesting is that I've called him out about this on X, and I know him. As I think if you're active in the Republican Party, a lot of people know him. He's very active. He used to be on the state central committee. I don't know if he is anymore, but this is not an honest person, and so he blocked me in response because that's what these people do. Instead of actually responding to the charge, why don't you respond and tell us what happened? They'll just block anyone that brings it up and keep on with their little narrative that they're good people. So his entire X feed is all about how he reads books. He's he's a book reader. Oh, I read this book. It's all about how people should be good and honest. And I'm like, if you're reading the book, are you learning anything from it? Or are you just like reading it? Because are you just like repeating it to other people to pretend like you're a good person? I don't know that's my point. Like, if you're going to read books, good for you, but can you at least learn something from the book? Although really, what happened here is probably book worthy, to be honest with you. So in the appeal that he files with the chief administrative officer, he questions the veracity of the record officer's response that a reasonable search was conducted. And Michael Clara says, I am aware of Mikhail Jordan, the special agent in the investigation division of the Utah Attorney General's office, has interviewed multiple victim witnesses in relation to the records sought. Additionally, one of the victim witnesses provided me with the following case number, AG 24170. Accordingly, the relief I am seeking is that I be provided the records I am seeking. I mean, right? Like, give me the records. I know that they exist. They have to exist. This individual is going out and doing an investigation. So now he's given them the name of the special agent and the case number. They didn't have that before. But so you would think the response would now be, okay, here are the records, or we have the records, we have responsive records, here's a description of them, but we're not going to produce them to you because of these statutes that allow us to withhold them from disclosure. That is not what happened. So now what happens is that Daniel Burton on August 7th of 2024 responds to Michael Clara. And here, I'll share this with you so you can see it. I always have trouble figuring out how to like do this well because I don't want to share something I'm not supposed to share, you know? Okay, here we go. So you can see here, this is, at the time, the Attorney General was Sean Reyes, right? And he says in here, first of all, he repeats what Michael Clara says about being aware of the special agent. So this is kind of an acknowledgement that like, okay, you have brought up the special agent, Jordan, and you have brought up AG 24170. I am, as a chief administrative officer, my name is Daniel Burton for this purpose. I am repeating what you said. So now I am aware of it. Then he says, having researched this matter, I can confirm that the office has no records of any investigation. And then he says, quote here, this is important. I don't know, this is not going to work. Hold on. I'm going to show here. Disaster, wrong color. Let me try that again. Okay, here. Pertaining to the signature. Okay, so here, this is what he says, because I think this is kind of important. He said, having researched the matter, I can confirm that the office has no records of an investigation pertaining to the signature gathering nominating petitions for Spencer Cox for the 2024 election cycle. While the office may be investigating other matters related to signature gathering, there is no investigation related to Spencer Cox. Thus, there are no records responsive to your request. Moreover, any records related to any ongoing investigation would be classified as protected under Utah Code Section 30510, because disclosure at this time reasonably could be expected to interfere with investigation, audits, and or enforcement proceedings. Accordingly, your appeal is respectfully denied. Okay. First of all, this language is important. Pertaining to the signature gathering nominating petitions for Spencer Cox for the 2024 election cycle. What they were trying to do was to narrow the request as much as possible to reduce the number of potentially responsive documents. So now they have plausible deniability in case the reports that investigated Governor Cox's signature petitions ever became public. Now, there are actually two reports that we have copies of. We have the unredacted version of 24170. And so you can see in that report, like I said earlier, that 18 of Spencer Cox's signature petitions were investigated as part of that investigation. I want to add, we also have a redacted version of the same report. A third party went and made a grandma request and got a response. They got a copy of 24170. This happened recently. And the Attorney General's office redacted it. They redacted it so much that they actually removed the candidates' names from the entire document. Like literally, like you cannot see that Governor Cox's signature petitions were actually investigated as part of 24170 if you look at their redacted version. It's bad. It's honestly, it's embarrassing that they did that because there's no statutory basis for what they did. They actually cite a bunch of statutes here. I'll show you, because I was shocked by this personally. I was like, I can't believe they cited these as the basis for not allowing this information because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit. So here, I think this is the one. So let's see. Yeah, okay, so here, these are the bases. So they did 3021 record. I'll just read I won't read the section, but they said, so the reasons why these were redacted, they just said, we have all these redactions, this report, here are the bases for it. Records describing medical history, diagnosis, condition, treatment, etc. That has nothing to do with Governor Cox's name and his petitions being part of that investigation. Data on individuals, the disclosure of which constitutes a clearly unwarranted invasion of privacy. You are the sitting governor and you are running for office. Invasion of privacy is not really like a great basis to not disclose these records. And actually their signature petitions have nothing to do with you personally. Records, the release of which could disclose the identity of a source who is not generally known outside of government. I think the sources are known because a lot of them have been charged now with criminal acts, right? So it's like, I don't know, is that why? Records, the release of which could reasonably be expected to disclose investigative techniques, procedures. I have the redacted report. I don't think it discloses any of your investigative procedures. I'd be happy to hear otherwise. Don't think it does. Records, a disclosure of which would jeopardize the life or safety of an individual. Please. This would be the one that they love to use in Utah, right? Like, oh, my life is under threat. And you're like, no, it's not. No one here is going to do anything. We just want you to be we want you held accountable for what you did. Like, nobody wants to do anything to you, though. That's ridiculous. Then records, a disclosure of which would jeopardize the security of governmental record-keeping systems. I don't even know. That obviously doesn't apply. Records prepared for by an attorney or other qualified employee for or in anticipation of litigation or other proceeding. I am pretty sure that Governor Cox's name in there does not count for that. So they totally are just citing whatever they want, because I think at its heart that they think that the report's never going to become public. And even if it does, that it's going to be so redacted, it'll be completely useless to the general public and you won't be able to figure out what happened. That's what I actually think was happening here. Okay. Now, what's kind of interesting about this last response by Burton is he adds a catch-all language to it. Let me share that again. Sorry. The catch-all language is this, moreover, any records related to any ongoing investigation would be classified as protected under this code section, because disclosure at this time reasonably could be expected to interfere with investigations, audits, and or enforcement proceedings. So he adds this in, which is an addition from what Lonnie Pearson did. And I think he adds it in as kind of like a catch-all, right? So if there's an issue in the future and the report gets released, I now have plausible deniability to say like, oh, it was covered. I disclosed it. Although really, if you go and look at grandma law, this is not properly invoked, because what they're actually supposed to do is they're supposed to describe the documents that they're withholding and the basis for doing each of the documents. Some just general statement, just, you know, what if we happen to have any documents, they are covered by this exception we found. That is not sufficient under grandma, and I don't think this works. So, and think about it this way. The reason why they're supposed to disclose to you and give you some sort of a description of the documents is so that if you disagree with them, you can appeal it and you can take it to the next level. So in this case, it would be to the State Records Committee at the time, but now to the Government Records Office. But how do you do it if this is the description that they provide to you? I mean, honestly, it's really embarrassing, because I worked for the U.S. Department of Justice for 10 years in the tax division. And one of the things that's kind of drilled into you is, as a government lawyer, you are actually supposed to be doing what's right. It's about justice, right? It's not, and the government is in a very different position. We don't want people you don't want people lying. You don't want people doing what happened here. And I think maybe this just indicates our Attorney General's office is really just has some problems. Okay. So anyway, that's his response. We know one thing that's kind of interesting is we don't know if Chief Administrative Officer Daniel Burton ever even talked to Special Agent Jordan, right? Because think about this. Michael Clara has now said to you, I know that Special Agent Jordan went and interviewed people about their signatures on Governor Cox's signature petitions. if you are actually doing a legitimate search for documents, I would think the first place you would go to ask is Special Agent Jordan. You would just walk over to her desk. By the way, I didn't even know it was a girl until just recently. I thought that was a boy's name. So I apologize to Special Agent Jordan. Mikkel, I guess I just thought I don't know why I thought it was a boy's name, but anyway, point being that, you know, you would just walk over to Special Agent Jordan's desk and say, hey, do you have any responsive records to this? We don't know if Daniel Burton ever did that. So, I mean, and I don't even think it can be a reasonable search if he hasn't gone to Special Agent Jordan. Okay, so then Michael Clara gets this denial. He takes that denial now and he goes to the next level at that time to State Records Committee. And he files an appeal with them. And he says, let's see here. Let me see. He had two bases for it. One is the denial was not credible because, again, they must have responsive records somewhere. And that's the point. In fact, a big part of our motion is not the fact we're not saying you had to turn over the documents. You just had to disclose their existence. That's the key point here. And then you could say, we have responsive records. We have 18 of Governor Cox's signature petitions were investigated as part of this. We have interview notes from the various victims. We have audio, because a lot of times they're doing audio of these interviews. We have raw notes. We have addresses. We have all this different information. And so, but we're not going to give it to you right now for these reasons. They didn't do that. Instead, they said we don't have any responsive documents, which was a lie. Okay. So Michael Clara then goes to the State Records Committee. Okay. And, you know, by the way, like the State Records Committee, I never had a case actually go before them, but kind of a cool concept, right? It's some people are just citizens. It's all kind of like these different people involved in it. Maybe, I guess we'll see how it works out, but maybe there might have been more of an inclination to grant document requests because you have some citizen involvement. So I think that's kind of neat about it. But anyway, it ends up, and so he has two bases, right? One is this is not a credible denial. And two is, again, he didn't actually properly invoke the protection to withhold the documents. He needed to describe the records and then give the basis for not disclosing it. Well, it goes to the State Records Committee, and then Rebecca Shaw, who's the executive secretary of the SRC, and she is now still the executive secretary of the Government Records Office. She just carried over. She sends him a message and denies the appeal. Okay, and she says, here, hold on, let me pull this up. She denies his appeal. And she says, appeal is denied because the chair has determined that sufficient evidence was not provided that records are maintained by the entity which have not been provided, or that the governmental entity has concealed or has not sufficiently or has improperly searched for the record. Now, keep in mind that while this is going on, the Attorney General's office is obstructing Michael Clara's attempts to get documents. So he doesn't have any other evidence that has come through during the process. Like had they responded the way they should have responded to his requests, he actually would have had more information to go the appeal. The appeal actually would have been very different. So the same day that she sends that message, Michael Clara emails her back, and he's like, "What are you talking about? I gave you a business card from this special agent, right, Mikkel Jordan. This is the evidence that I have. What more evidence do you need to be able to understand that they must have responsive records to my request? I've asked for records related to the case number written on the business card, 24-170. Okay, makes sense, right? Pretty logical. Well, then she actually, and here's actually her. Here, I'll show you guys this. This is actually the message. Oh my God, I don't know where you guys went. Oh, hold on. It's like, Okay, let me try again. We're back. Okay, so here's Michael Clara's thing. Okay, so this is her response, right? And you can see again here, she says, pertaining to the signature gathering nominating petitions for Spencer Cox. If you notice, does not mention AG 24170 or Special Agent Jordan. The Rebecca Shaw does not mention that in the denial that she writes. So she ignores that part of Michael Clare's appeal. In his appeal, he actually lays this out, like, Special Agent Michael Jordan went and interviewed these people. Here's the business card. He includes a screenshot of the business card in the appeal. Rebecca Shaw does not include that information in her response to Michael Clara. That's notable because that's kind of odd, right? Like, if someone gives you something that specific, why would you respond with generalities to it? I just think that's a little bit strange. So then Michael Clara responds, and here he sends an email. He's like, well, first of all, who's the chair? Who's chair? At the time that this happened, the person who was the chair of the State Records Committee, her term had expired, and she hadn't been reconfirmed. So who's this unspecified chair that you said made this decision? And actually, to this day, we don't know who it was. And so I think part of the theory here is that there wasn't a chair who did this, and it was actually Rebecca Shaw acting on her own accord, you know. Maybe at the direction of someone else, because I will say some of what happens here strikes me as there's like coordination maybe going on down the line. We don't have evidence about like kind of the background stuff that's going on here in terms of from the Attorney General's office to the State Records Committee, except I would say that there is likely going to be an Attorney General's office or an attorney at the Attorney General's office who provides advice to your State Records Committee that I would hope would be walled off from this type of information about what's going on with the investigation, but I don't know for sure. Then he says, and then he said, when you report to the committee, this is important, because this is done without the State Records Committee's input. And so she's going to go on August 15th, I guess, and she's going to report to them and say, okay, this was denied and here's why. So he says, when you go to that committee on August 15th of 2024, you should report the appeal and report that the appeal was declined. Please ensure that the committee is aware that the evidence I presented with my statement of facts is a business card that Special Agent Jordan of the AG office provided to one of the victims and even wrote case number AG 24170 on the card. Okay. And then he says, I do believe that it is important that the committee be informed that you, the chair, and one other member have made the determination that the general counsel of the Attorney General's office, Daniel Burton, stating that the records in dispute do not exist is sufficient, and that a business card of a special agent from the office of the Attorney General with the very case number of the records I am seeking is not enough to overcome the denial of the Attorney General's office. And then he says, if you guys affirm the denial, I am going to appeal this to district court. Okay. So then I'm going to show you this, because what ends up happening is Rebecca Shaw goes to the State Record. I don't know if you can hold on. That's very irrelevant to my life. Okay, here we go. Let me get this up for you. 1503. So here, we'll listen to Rebecca Shaw.
Clara versus the Attorney General's office. This one was for investigation records pertaining to the signature gathering nominating petitions for Governor Cox. The Attorney General's office responded that they do have investigation records related to signature gathering, but they don't have any records related to the signature gathering nomination petitions for Governor Cox.
Okay, just again, that's a lie. That they said that them saying that is a flat out lie. Okay.
So there are no records responsive to the request. And so that one was denied as having insufficient evidence that the records exist. He did provide the case number that he thought it was for, and the investigator.
Kind of a weird way to put that, right? He literally got a business card from a special agent who was doing the specific investigation he was referring to and had the case number from the investigation, 24-170, and she doesn't mention that to the committee. I think that's really important.
But it isn't clear from either party if that investigation is tied to Governor Cox or if that's related to some other signature gathering something. So that one was denied due to insufficient evidence that the records exist, and that I think is all of them.
Okay. So there's a couple things in what she said that I think are notable. Like I said, she doesn't mention the case number, doesn't mention the special agent's name, doesn't say, hey, it's kind of like he actually has a business card. Well, what's weird? Like, what, the handwritten case number on it. Interesting. Like, what? It's weird. It seems like there might be more here. And this is from the Attorney General's office. Weird. Like, you would think they'd have, like, how do you have a business card with this case number on it, but no responsive records? Then she says, there's a couple. So I think the answer itself was, what she said there was disingenuous. The other piece is that she didn't mention in his appeal, Michael Clara actually says, I'm going to bring witnesses to the hearing, and they're going to testify about how the special agent came and talked to them. So she kind of leaves out material information when she's reported in the State Records Committee. And to me, it seems like that was likely purposeful because if she had given them the full context, it's likely they would have overruled what she had done. And so this strikes me as being very calculating and very aimed at getting a particular result, which is what she got. So, I mean, hopefully she gets rewarded very well for that. I don't know, maybe she'll be something more than the executive secretary of the government records office. I don't know. Maybe that's her dream job. Who knows? I guess she has a lot of power in that position now that I think about this. Okay. So then next, Michael Clara, so, he takes this, right? And hold on. Oh, and then also, sorry, in that thing from Rebecca Shaw, she actually leaves out completely that the Attorney General's office has invoked a reason to withhold records, but hasn't actually provided any descriptions of records that are being withheld by the statute. So basically, Rebecca Shaw is now affirming what was done by the Attorney General's office, even though she doesn't have the authority to do that. She still hasn't disclosed who the chair was who made this determination. So we're now like more than a year later, and she hasn't provided basic information about this. Now she's still in her government taxpayer-funded position after doing what she did here, which is unfortunate. I think all these people should be gone. Like if you really had honor, integrity, and you were involved in this type of stuff, you would resign and just go do your own thing, whatever. Maybe you just live a life of poverty because you did bad things and nobody wants to hire liars. But I don't feel like taxpayers should have to fund this stuff. It's kind of weird. Okay, so anyway, so now he's got the denial from the State Records Committee. It's a summary denial. The committee never hears the appeal. I think that's on purpose. And think about it this way. He's disclosed in the appeal itself, I am going to bring witnesses that are going to talk about how they are interviewed about Governor Cox's signature petitions. They're not stupid. They know exactly what that'll do. So they shut it down. Now there's no hearing. And this now, Michael Clara appeals it to the district court. Okay. He does that on September 9th of 2024. Now, there's like different things happen in that case. Michael Clara is kind of at a disadvantage because, like I said, he has spent months and months trying to get this information from the Attorney General's office. And at every juncture, they turn around and they say, there are no responsive records. And they try to narrow the grammar request as much as possible to, again, fit their narrative that there's no responsive records. So then on July 7th of 2025, the Attorney General's office files their second amended motion for summary judgment. And what a summary judgment is a party will file this. They're saying there are no disputes of material fact. So the court can rule on the case based on the facts that are presented in the motion. and they can apply the law to it and now rule in our favor. So that's what the Attorney General does. They say, rule in our favor. We've done a reasonable search. There are no responsive records, and there's no reason to continue with this case. Okay. Michael Clare doesn't respond because he's like, I have no evidence. Like they're saying, I don't have any other evidence besides what I produced, which is the business card, the case number, and the information I've done throughout the process. Now, in their motion, in the body of the second amended motion for summary judgment, the Attorney General's office does not disclose the case number, the AG 24170. They don't disclose Special Agent Jordan's activities. They do attach a copy of Michael Clara's appeal, grandma appeal, to the State Records Committee that has that information in it. This was on an unopposed motion, so I don't know if the court would have actually gone through and reviewed it in detail. Just to be fair about it, because courts are busy, and so if you have an unopposed motion, which is what happened here, you may not put in as much effort. So the court grants the motion for summary judgment, and they do this on August 15th. Is it 15th of 2025? That sounds right. Or maybe it's August. I think it's August 17th, actually. Sorry, August 17th. Sounds right to me. And the court concludes, based upon the undisputed facts, the court concludes, undisputed facts, this is what I was talking about, because Michael didn't dispute them, they're undisputed. Based upon the undisputed facts, the court concludes the Attorney General's office conducted a reasonable search for the records, but no such records exist because no investigation pertaining to the signature gathering nominating petitions for Spencer Cox for the 2024 election cycle was conducted. Therefore, these records cannot be produced in response to a grandma request, and the court is unable to provide Clara the ultimate relief he seeks. Okay, so based on what was presented to the court, this is probably the response you would expect, right? All the court can do is go based on what's been filed before it. Then on September 27th of 2025, a whistleblower comes forward and gives Michael Clara a copy of AG 24170. This is the investigation that he had been trying to get get records for. The report that Michael gets is unredacted, so we can read everything in it. I've read through the report. It is very clear that it is responsive to his grandma request. In addition, so like I said, 18 of Governor Cox's signature petitions were part of that investigation. Special Agent Jordan went to multiple people's homes with copies of Governor Cox's petitions and asked the witnesses, "Is this your signature?" To which the witnesses said, "No, I did not sign that petition," meaning that Governor Cox's signature petitions were investigated as part of 24170. Understand this. They had responsive records. When this report was released, it showed that every single response from the Attorney General's office to Michael Clara's grandma request, including Lonnie Pearson's, was a flat out lie. They were hiding the fact that they were investigating Governor Cox's signature petitions. And this investigation, 24-170, started in April of 2024. It started actually, I think, the Thursday or Friday before the state convention. They knew that they didn't have the signatures, I think, when they went into that convention. So I'm just hoping that now you guys are understanding that they had responsive records. They did not disclose the existence of them, and they did not produce them as they were required to by law. Okay. So we have evidence. The evidence actually shows that what they had said was a lie throughout the entire process. They have judgment though. So what do we do? What do you do now? Okay. And so that's where I was talking to Michael. I hope that Susan Britta says, "Gee, God, I wonder what happened to the whistleblower." Well, I hope nothing. I will just say this, like, for what it's worth, part of what's kind of shocking about this entire thing is that I think that Governor Cox didn't have the signatures he needed to get onto the primary ballot. And so and the fact of the matter is there were no whistleblowers that came forward and said anything about it. That should scare people. I think that should really scare you, because you have people that are working on elections in Utah who allowed fraud to happen and did nothing about it. They didn't even have the conscience to come forward and say, this is wrong. I'm going to go and tell people what's going on here to make sure that this isn't how we have our elections run. They didn't see any need to do that. And I think that's really disturbing. So, but to the extent that we finally got a whistleblower who came forward with this report, I am thankful. I don't know what it is that triggered this person to feel like there was something wrong here, but let's be thankful that that person actually came forward. And I hope nothing happens to them. If something does happen to them, I hope that they'll come forward publicly. And we should help them if something happens to them. Like, let's get them legal representation and make sure that that they're protected, because they're like in this story, they're the first person to come forward from the government side who's actually done something good, right? Like, we need more people like that, to be honest with you. Because on a really basic level, I think that this signature thing raises all sorts of questions. First of all, I think it's confirmed at this point that Governor Cox did not have the signatures required to get onto the primary ballot. That's confirmed. And I think eventually, hopefully, we'll get the full signature petitions, we'll see them, and this will be 100% confirmed. And then the question, though, is, to me, how many other times has this happened, right? Because I doubt this was the first time it happened, because I think it's probably happened before, and people didn't think to go and dig into it. And so, or maybe they didn't have the situation like we have now, where you had a candidate who literally got completely eliminated at the state convention. So they 100%, the only way they could get on the ballot was through that signature process, and people didn't go and kind of do this digging. It makes me wonder how many other people have gotten onto a ballot that they were not entitled to be on because they actually did not have the signatures they needed. And it also raises a question about what other kinds of cheating is happening, because this one's actually something that we can go in and kind of figure out. Okay, here's this, we can go and look at these petitions, but let's give an example. A lot of you guys totally trust that these, they scan the ballots, they put them into the computer, and you trust that the numbers that come out of that computer are honest. And I don't know that we know that anymore, because they can be manipulated. And the fact that we've only had one whistleblower come out so far, and that whistleblower is from the Attorney General's office, so it wasn't running the election system, ought to raise questions for everyone that's listening about what other cheating is happening in our election system. The election system isn't fully transparent at this point. So what else is going on? What else do we know about? Are there other people that are in office right now that didn't win their elections? I don't know. These are questions. Let's see here. We've got Carmelita says not only Cox didn't have the signatures, but also Derek Brown and John Curtis. Okay, that's my point, right? We don't know. I don't think I believe any of the signature stuff anymore. She also said, of course, Derek, being the Attorney General, will never release the information. I mean, probably not. And I do think I always try to be kind of a glass half full person, right? And so one thing is, I think we need to get full transparency as to what happened in the 2024 elections. And we should not stop until we get all the information and expose it all. And then we get the story told. And I don't know where the story ends up being told, because unfortunately, a lot of our local media is, for lack of a better word, they're crap, a bunch of hacks. And so they're not going to do it. Lindsay Aerts isn't going to be doing this. That doesn't fit in with her worldview. And but maybe, we do have some good quality reporters, so maybe one of them will do it. Or maybe we try to go to a national source that could kind of look at this and start to dig and tell the story. So, but anyway, in the meantime, we need to do the digging, and so that's what this is about. So let's keep going. So, Mr. Producer says that's why we have KMMU. Yes. Actually, maybe the exposure can happen right here. But I can do some of it, but we got to have we need other voices to do it too. We need people in Utah to understand and to wake up. I think a lot of people here are in a stupor, right? They think, I'm going to say this. I'm not saying it as like a, because I love my I love all my LDS neighbors. They're wonderful people, but I do think LDS culture a little bit is about trusting other people that are LDS, and that kind of hurts the ability to get the transparency and the questioning you need. So we have to help break that cultural piece of it and help people understand that, like, hey, we're all on the same side of this thing. We just want transparency. We want honesty. We want ethical people in office. And I don't think that the governor and lieutenant governor represent my neighbors at all, because I don't think my neighbors would ever do that kind of stuff. So I hope maybe with evidence we can help break through that cultural kind of affinity that happens here. Sanji Land says lieutenant governor seat should not be official over election. Utah needs a secretary of state seat stat. I think that would help here, actually, for sure. Okay, so now let me pull up. I was going to show you guys. Okay, so Rule 60B. Let's talk about. So we look at this motion. We get the report. We're reading through it, and I'm like, God, there has to be something that we can do here, right? Now, like I said, the judgment was entered, I think, August 17th. And so then I'm doing some research, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Rule 60B. This might be an answer. So let me pull it up for you so you guys can see it. Okay. And let's see. You are listening. You are listening and watching KMMU Main Street Media Utah. We are live on X, Rumble, YouTube, and our website, kmmu.org. Thanks for listening, and tell your friends. Yeah, tell your friends. Hit the like button. Share the show, and subscribe. I don't know how you subscribe, Mr. Producer. Is that more on like YouTube or something? Well, anyway, follow me on X. Follow Main Street Media Utah on X. Follow the YouTube channel, do the whole thing. Get us out there. Okay, so this is Rule 60B. So we've done a motion on two parts of this. First, we're doing it under subsection 2. This is newly discovered evidence which by due diligence could not have been discovered in time to move for a new trial under Rule 59B, right? Oh, Mr. Producer says if you want to subscribe, you can do it on the website, and it's free. So kmmu.org, go on there, and if you subscribe, I think you'll just get notifications and emails and stuff. Okay, so 59B says that you can move for a new trial within 28 days of the entry of judgment. Well, in this case, the whistleblower didn't come forward until after the 28-day period had expired. So here, in this first part, we have a very clear-cut argument. Michael Clara actually exercised due diligence, trying to get the information, any information from the Attorney General's office, going through the entire grandma process, and it didn't work, right? He wasn't able to get the information because the Attorney General's office misled him misled the State Records Committee and misled the court about the existence of responsive records. Because in their motion for summary judgment before the court, like I said, they continued to assert there were no responsive records. So here, I think we have a good argument, because then we say, look, this whistleblower came forward with this report. It was more than 28 days after judgment was entered, but Michael Clara has no control over when a whistleblower is going to come forward with and decide to give him the evidence, right? So that's one basis. Now, I will say, kind of just to give you like maybe to kind of think of this context and weaknesses. A weakness would be that Michael Clara also didn't file a motion for summary, like he didn't, I don't think he conducted any discovery or anything in the case. So like the court might say, well, you should have conducted some discovery in this case, I guess. I mean, but if that happens, we'll respond to it, because I think their argument would be like, well, I went through the grandma process when I was already entitled to the information. I wasn't asking for anything else in terms of discovery here that they shouldn't already have given me. So really, it wouldn't have actually materially changed anything for me to do a discovery request again. They showed that those efforts would have been futile by constantly obstructing my request throughout the grandma process. Okay, so that's that one. Then we also have the basis of this, and that is fraud. So fraud, whether previously called intrinsic or extrinsic, misrepresentation or other misconduct of an opposing party. And so here, under grandma, they were required to at least disclose the existence of responsive records. Their failure to do that was fraud or misconduct by the Attorney General's office. And so that is another basis on which we have asked the court to relieve Michael of judgment. And like I said, in this case, what they should have done, the appropriate way to have handled this, because when I think about, if I put myself into the shoes of the Attorney General's office, I would think, well, we have these records and we don't want to have to disclose them to the public for whatever reason. The appropriate way to respond at that point would have been to list out the records, provide a description of them, and then to say we are withholding these based on these reasons. That case would not be we wouldn't be able to do a Rule 60B motion because they would have done the right thing that they're supposed to do under grandma. We're only at the Rule 60B portion of this because they did not do what they are required to under grandma, and instead they chose to conceal the existence of the records. So anyway, so that's where we are. Now, we just filed this motion on Friday. And so, like I said, the next step is the Attorney General's office, they get to file an opposition to it. We'll see. I don't know what they're going to say, but we'll see. Obviously, they're going to oppose it, I assume. And they'll have 14 days to do that. They may, and let me just be real about this, like they may ask for an extension because I think this will fall right the Friday after Thanksgiving. And so I personally, I would expect them to probably seek an extension. I don't know what they're going to do. We'll see if they do. I mean, it's generally common professional courtesy to say, okay, go, that's fine. And then we'll have 7 days after they file their opposition to file our reply brief. Then we may have oral argument if that's what the court wants. I think we would request that, to be honest with you. And then the court will issue a ruling. If the court relieves Michael of judgment in this case, then we can go and do discovery. Because what the key point here is that we now have a copy of 24-170, right? So but that report itself is, first of all, it wasn't produced by the Attorney General's office. But second of all, it indicates that there are more responsive records in their possession. So we don't have everything yet. And so we need to actually go and conduct discovery to figure out what other responsive documents the Attorney General's office has. Because at this point, I don't know why my client would trust anything that the Attorney General's office tells them, right? Because they spent months lying about the existence of these documents. He would be stupid to just take a representation by them that they don't have anything else that's responsive. So that's kind of the impact of this. Now, we may have other things that he decides he wants to do. And as we kind of go through that, we'll talk about it. But that's what I got so far for you guys today on that. And that's why I think that I'm hoping, like I said, I'm a lawyer, so I tend to be a little bit like, let's see what happens. But I thought it would be useful to at least walk you through what we're trying to do here and why I think this motion in this case is actually really good. It's a solid motion. And we'll see what happens. If you have any questions, by the way, you can call in. It's 385-899-2134. If you have any comments, you're welcome to call in too. I love your comments. So, okay, let me go. Let's see what I have next on here. Oh, okay. So Mr. Producer says if I finish early, it'd be great because he has a meeting. We will finish a little bit early for sure. Okay, let's see here. So now I've got... Okay, I saw this and I thought this was interesting. Let me share this with you. I think this is interesting though, because we have this Judge Gibson. She came out with this decision about Prop 4 and then the new map that the legislature came out with. Instead of picking their map, she went with this, the League of Women Voters and the Mormon Women for Ethical Government, their map. I don't think there's any basis for her to do that. I don't think there's really, I actually think what she did was illegal and unconstitutional, frankly. But first of all, we all have to be real about this. I know some people are thinking that the legislature is going to impeach. I know that Representative McPherson has said he is going to open a bill to impeach her. I think that they should impeach her, but I don't think that they will. I just don't think that we have the type of legislators who will do that. That's just not a part of it. Carmelita says, who is funding that group of women? So the Mormon Women for Ethical Government. I have no idea. I did see something from there's that woman, God, I can't remember her name, the one who does like she'll like follow the funding threads, and she seemed to indicate it was funded by left-wing groups, which would, I mean, obviously they're a left-wing group. They're using that Mormon Women for Ethical Government thing as a cover to kind of like, I think, fool people, but you know, and I'm sure they'll fool a lot of people with that, unfortunately. The Data Republican, that's the one. She actually posted about, yes, Data Republican. Okay, so anyway, so there's been criticism though of Judge Gibson. So instead of, well, I actually think this is shocking personally. Okay, so oh wait, hold on. Okay, let's see. We got Disagree Better said, yeah, Data Republican did a dive into it. Yeah, so I mean, I encourage people to go check it out because I just kind of saw it, but sometimes I have a little bit of trouble because like those threads can go pretty long. I mean, I like it, don't get me wrong. Like if I feel like I want to read it, I'll read it. But that one I was like, okay, because some of the funding stuff it's like very complicated. And it always ends up back at like USAID or something, you know, like the State Department, and all of these kind of are basically we're paying for our own demise. I think that's what I always come up with at the end of this. Is like, oh, okay, so basically I have to work more so that I can pay taxes, so some D-bag in DC can take my money and then send it to left-wing groups to then destroy the society that I want to live in. Great. This is totally what I'm living for. That, and apparently giving everybody food stamps so nobody has to work except for, you know, half of us have to work our butts off while the other half like go and live off the government. It's kind of ridiculous. Jonah W says something has to be done though, or else Utah is going deep blue. Yeah. I mean, I don't really think there's anything you can do. that's not half glass half full. Okay, I think there's things we can do. Okay, I'll just say this though. So this is gonna be a little unconventional take on this. I actually think the legislature should have pushed back on Judge Gibson when she ordered them to do a new map. Okay, so they didn't, because our legislature is full of beta males. So even the women are beta males. They're weirdly aggressive. Like Candace Perucci is bizarrely aggressive in like the weirdest ways, in the nastiest ways. So like, for example, she falsely accused this gay guy of sexual harassment, not to her, to a bunch of other people. So it's like Amy Winder Newton, and then destroyed his life. She's okay, and she's totally fine with doing that. No issues at all. She won't answer questions about it. She thinks it's totally cool. Just like that's just nasty aggressiveness. But then when it comes to like protecting women in women's bathrooms, she totally backs down when some tranny goes up to her and is like, I need to be able to go and use the women's bathroom. And she's like, oh, okay, you're right. You totally do. Like, I wish she was aggressive in that circumstance. So I was like, no, you're never going to use the women's bathroom. Categorical ban on men and women's bath. That we can't get. We never get that kind of aggressiveness. We get the weird passive aggressive grossness. But she's probably going to be the next congresswoman from CD4, so get used to it, because I can't even imagine how much worse it's going to be. And then her warmonger husband, he's like a lobbyist for defense companies. You know, they're going to be rolling the dough after she gets into Congress. There's going to be like, he's going to be like the top lobbyist for defense companies. They'll probably be insider trading, the whole thing. That's going to be a mess. But maybe he'll resign from his Riverton City Council position. So maybe that's a benefit. I don't know. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so the point was this. So today, so Judge Gibson is getting a lot of legitimate criticism that she has overstepped her authority, and what she did is unconstitutional. Okay, like we are allowed to criticize judges. Everybody's allowed to. But apparently they don't like that. So there's this article, and the courts, there condemns threats after Utah judge redistricting ruling. They're claiming that there were threats. And so what they say is, in a statement, right, I know, hey, that totally. Mr. Producer says, I love it when the rebuttal to unconstitutionality is, they're threatening me. The legislature are cowards. Who is threatening her? Nobody. Nobody's threatening her. Okay. They say here, in a statement, the Utah court said it does not comment on specific threats, but acknowledge that such incidents have recently occurred. Well, here's the thing. If you go to court and you say something happened, you have to provide evidence of it. Like you have to, like, testimony under oath. But if there are threats, I'd want to see the threats. Show me the threats. I want to see the emails that threatened you. I want to see the social media posts you're saying are threatening. They always, you know how this works, right? They'll go and they'll find some anonymous account and be like, this is a threat. And you're like, I don't even know who that is. Who cares? People say all sorts of stuff to me all the time. I'm just like, whatever. Yeah, come to my house, do what you want. That's not a real invitation, by the way. I will call the cops. So like, so don't come to my house. But anyway, the point being, they come up with these random things. Like, here's some random person that made it there. Okay, like, who cares? Like, why are you even looking at that and searching it out? Is that even like real? Like, people say all sorts of BS on the internet, but there's no evidence of it at all. So the courts will want you. Oh, I totally am looking. Hold on, I gotta share. I'm sharing the wrong tab. There you go. Okay. So the courts, if you go to court, the judge is going to say to you, you have to present evidence for me to believe the statements that you are making. They're making statements here without any evidence. They haven't shown any of the threats. So I'm sorry, but I'm not just going to believe your allegations. You need to show us some evidence. I want to see the threats. Then they say, we call on everyone to approach concerns involving the courts with civility, respect, and constructive dialogue. Threats of violence against judges or court personnel are unacceptable, dangerous, and may violate state or federal law. Okay, well then go take it up with law enforcement. Salt Lake Police plan to increase patrols around Matheson Courthouse, a spokesman said, while both Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office and Utah Department of Public Safety said they take any threats seriously. Okay, do an investigation. Let's see the threats. If you're going to claim the threats happened, show us the evidence. We have a right to see it. Just like you would ask, and all these judges would ask you for evidence if you went to court. They're not gonna rule in your favor if you just make unsupported assertions. Let's see. There was a statement in here that made me kind of like, I didn't like this. Oh, here. Okay. The Utah State Courts defended Gibson's ruling. Okay. Noting that threats undermine the justice system. Again, allegations of threats, since they have no evidence of it. Judges have a constitutional duty to apply the law to the facts before them, independent of external pressures. That's actually not we don't even know if that's what happened here. That independence is essential to preserving the separation of powers and ensuring that justice is administered fairly and impartially, the statement said. When parties disagree with the judicial ruling, the appropriate and lawful avenue for addressing those concerns is the established appellate process. Utah's courts provide a structured and transparent system for reviewing decisions and correcting potential errors, reinforcing public confidence in the integrity of the judicial process. Okay, a couple things. One is appeals are not the only mechanism for dealing with bad court decisions, especially when you're dealing with here a case like this where the judiciary has now stepped into the legislative role. And by the way, it's very clear for anybody that paid attention to the hearings that Judge Gibson was having when she was looking at the maps and trying to decide which one to pick. It was very clear that there's a reason why the individuals who wrote the Utah Constitution gave the duty to the legislature. It's not something a court can do because there's so many different interests you're looking at. You're trying to figure out these communities where people are like common communities. You're trying to figure out where you can draw the lines. You're trying to figure out who has interests with who. I had a friend call me and he was like, you know, one of the things that's interesting about this map, he's doing like a reverse thing here, is that the Judge Gibson split the Black community in two in Utah. I guess there's a Black community. I look, this is all kind of, it's a little bit out of my, because my view is like, it shall be race neutral, right? But if you want to play the left's game, I guess there's a Black community in Salt Lake City, and then there's one in Ogden. Well, Judge Gibson split them up. Is that really like the job of a judge to do that? The Hispanic community tends to be on the west side of Salt Lake County. It's been split in two. Judge Gibson did that. Is that really like her role to make those types of decisions? There's no accountability for her. like with elected officials doing this, again, through the legislature, we can vote them out if we don't like the maps that they draw. And so she did step into the legislative function. When that happens, what the legislature should be doing is they should be exercising their co-equal branch to the judiciary. They should be exercising that authority to impeach her and remove her from the bench. That's how that plays out. I will say another way to, again, hold the judiciary in check are retention elections. And so this is for everybody, voters listening. I actually think you shouldn't retain any of the judges we have on the bench. The retention rates here are at 100%. We need turnover on the bench. And it's too difficult to be able to go and tell people, like, vote for this one, but I would just vote no on all of them, because what we need are better processes to get better judges onto the bench. She's actually, I saw this post by Erin Bullen. She's a registered Democrat. I don't even know why she's on the bench with a supermajority Republican Senate and a Republican governor. If there's someone out there that can explain this to me, I would love to know. I will say that some guy, there's another one who's a Democrat. It's well, first of all, I think a lot of them are Democrats, but she's one. And then recently they confirmed Charles Stormont, to be a judge. And he was actually the Democrat nominee for Attorney General in like 2014. So he's literally a Democrat. The governor appoints him. I think it was Cox. And then the Senate confirms him unanimously to the court. I said, I don't know why a super majority Republican legislature or Senate is doing that. And someone said, well, he's a constitutionalist. He's a good judge. I don't even care, because here's my issue with it. Grassroots Republicans have to work their butts off to get these people elected into office. Why wouldn't you then turn around and give the levers of government to the people that are part of your party that actually help you? You turn around and you give it to the Democrats instead? That doesn't make any sense to me. Well, then here's my deal. Then why should I even bother helping you get into office? If you're then going to go and I don't want to be a judge, so I'm not saying this for me. I'm saying this, I would like a Republican in that spot. Same with Judge Gibson. Let's vote her out. I think she comes up for her retention election. I think someone said in 2028 potentially. Let's vote her out. Get her out of there. Let's go. And then we'll replace her, hopefully, with a Republican. I'm not even a Republican. Let me just put it. I want strict constructionists, originalists put into these positions, because that's how you're going to root out the activism in the courts. And I'll also say this: the legislature actually needs to step in and impeach her to shut down the activism on the courts. You impeach one, the whole activism thing will stop overnight. Okay. Anyway, of course, Deidre Henderson shared the post, because she's like, she's a real winner. Okay, so let me see. I thought I had it. Oh, here. Okay. So Dee says, I'm glad to see Utah state courts speak strongly against threats towards members of the judiciary. Of course, she hasn't seen any evidence of them. Lincoln Warren. She's gonna cite to one of the greatest presidents we had. This cheating, this woman who literally cheats. She has no conscience either. Like, I know some of you are gonna tell me, I'm gonna get calls later. Goud, do you know that she is a good mother and a good wife? And I'm gonna say, I doubt it. If you think that, see, people that cheat are not going to be good spouses. They're not going to be good parents. They're not going to be good grandparents. They're bad people. Bad people like this, they're not going to be good anything. In fact, I wouldn't even want them around kids. So I'm glad to see Utah state courts speak strongly against threats towards the members of the judiciary, which we don't have any evidence that they happened. So just going to put that out there. Lincoln warned that a mobcratic spirit would destroy our country. Threatening and violent rhetoric encourages some people to take threatening and violent action. It's never okay. First of all, she's a liar. She lies about everything. She claimed that there was threats. Remember before the 2024 election? No evidence. None. She comes out some white powder envelope, no evidence. And I think Sophie recently put out something. She did a grammar request, and there's been no investigation. So what you should take away is this. When Lieutenant Governor Henderson did it, it was to shut down criticism of her because she cheated to get her and Governor Cox onto the Republican primary ballot. She knew that. She still knows it. and she wanted to shut down criticism. She makes these fake claims about, oh, there's these threats. And remember, also, actually, let's rewind a little bit. Do you remember the Utah State Republican Convention when she, Amy, was it Amy? Kira Birkland, and who was the other person? There's one more, I can't think of it. She claimed that people went and attacked her nieces. We all know that. I can 100% assure you that didn't happen, because I've been to the Republican State Convention multiple times. There's no delegate, first of all, that would even know who these kids are, or that would even do that. The delegates are actually really wonderful people, and they would never do that. Oh, Amy, of course, Amy Winter Newton. Of course, it's Amy. Kira Birkland made that whole claim about her daughter, that some old lady criticized her daughter for dressing, in her her booty shorts and her crop top or whatever when she came to the convention. So some old lady does her a favor and says, well, allegedly, by the way, I don't even think any of this happened. And Kira just made it up because she's just a liar. And she says, oh, she told my daughter you dressed inappropriately and body shamed her. And I was like, you should thank her that she told your daughter, do not dress like that to a state convention. It's not appropriate. You don't wear booty shorts to a state convention, right? In fact, I don't think you should wear them anywhere. I think it's weird. But, if you're going to wear them, I guess wear them to the gym. Wear them around you can wear them around your husband. I guess you do that. Wear them on your boyfriend, whatever you want to do. But there are certain places where maybe you shouldn't dress like that. But anyway, so she lied. So Lieutenant Governor Henderson also lied what happened at the state convention. See, she's just a bad person. And that's my point. So for somebody that are going to call me or message me and say she's a good mother and a good wife and whatever, I don't think she is. I think she's just a bad person overall, because people that are willing to lie like that, everything is going to be a lie. I don't know. Maybe she's dishonest with her husband too. She might be dishonest to her children, dishonest to her grandchildren, dishonest to everyone around her. She's obviously not bothered. Her conscience is not bothered by cheating and lying. So why do you think that's a good person? It's not a good person. Now, again, she does those lies to shut down criticism. And so the answer should be like, you shouldn't stop criticizing her. I'm not going to stop criticizing her. You did bad things. You get criticism. Same thing with Judge Gibson. I think the courts put this out unless they want to show evidence. Again, I want to see evidence. But even if you show me evidence, I didn't make any threats. I don't know anyone that made any threats. So all of us that are criticizing her get to keep criticizing her. That's called what happens when you make a bad decision. People have the free First Amendment right to criticize you. And frankly, I think the people that put that statement up from the court trying to shut down criticism, they should also be removed from their positions. Because if the courts are going to sit there and tell us that they are the arbiter of what's constitutional, well, the First Amendment is kind of important, and you should support that. I just want to add one more thing, and that's this. I've had some friends tell me, no, you can't impeach because you don't like the decision. I am actually not saying that. I am saying, I am actually saying you can impeach when judges go beyond their constitutional duties. And I think that's what happened here. And actually, when you say things like you cannot impeach them for certain decisions and things like that, you're actually lending to the idea of judicial supremacy, that they get to be the final arbiters of what the Constitution says. And that's not how this works. We have 3 branches of government, and all of them swear an oath to the Constitution, and all of them have an independent duty to evaluate whether their actions are within the bounds of what the Constitution allows. And if another branch is stepping into their realm, which is what happened here, we have a judge who made herself a Democrat in black robes, that's how I describe her, who has made herself the legislature and drawn a map, decided which map gets to be the one that goes. She now gets to get pushed back from the legislature. That's normal. That's what happens. Okay, we got a few more comments here. I don't know. Okay, let's see what we got here. So then Sanji Land says, Data Republican on X, thorough detailed facts. The Mormon name hijacked once again. Okay, so go check out that thread if you haven't, because she does a good job on it. Susan Beretta says, every time they want to deflect from their wrongdoing, they say they get mysterious threats, or they say they get white powder in the mail. Yeah, seriously. I guess I should take notes on that. So, if I ever say, I'll be like, oh my God, you guys, I got a white powder in the mail. Then you know that I don't want you to criticize me. That'll be good. Okay. Disagree better. The answer is right in your face. I think he's talking about the appointment of the Democrats to the bench. They aren't Republicans. Yeah, I actually think that's true. They're not. I think a lot. That's the thing. Like when somebody lies to you about these really basic things, I just don't understand how people don't think to themselves like they're probably lying about a lot more than that. I don't know. Oh, good. So Susan says, I voted no on every single judge on the ballot in 2024. Nice. Good job. Me too. Me too, actually. That's what I've been doing. Like I said, I just don't think there's no reason to retain any of them. And by the way, they're getting a 10-year term. That's enough. Go do something else after 10 years. Jonah says the GOP are eternal losers. They love the underdog angle so they can do media rounds and pretend to fight. That is true. That is so true. But I actually think they prefer to not win on purpose. You see that at the national level. Like I actually think they purposely want to lose the majority in the House and the Senate because they prefer to just be in the minority grift. You know, it's hard to govern. They're not willing to take any risk at all. Because my view is like in the position, and I do fault Trump a little bit for this as well, because I don't think he pushed them to actually go and make the transformational changes that he was entitled to push them to do. He won a mandate. A lot of them are in office because of him, because really they're losers, to your point. They're losers, like they never get anything done. It's not even like, honestly, the alternative was like 1,000 times worse, but it's even going to be worse now because these guys aren't going to fix anything. My address is pretty public. You can mail me talcum powder if you want. Okay, so anyway, the point being, I think they're trying to lose it all because they should govern. Look, if you're in the majority, you're going to have all of the negatives of incumbency. At that point, you should govern, and you should govern as a conservative. So in Utah, they don't do that. They don't govern really as conservatives. They do all this weird like like compromising with the left. So we get a bill where Candace Prucci wants to run around saying, you guys, I banned women or men from women's bathrooms. It turns out to conservatives. That's what she tells her delegates. Then she goes on to a news site and she says the exact opposite. No, if you go and you can go and use the men's bathroom, it's okay. Or the women's bathroom. Sorry, if you're a man, you can go use the women's bathroom. It's okay. And we get these weird compromises that because they're not governing conservatively. And the reality is Florida gives you the example of what to do. When you govern conservatively, when you exercise the levers of power, you will see your population will go along with you and they'll like it, because really conservative governance leads to better outcomes. But we'll have our weird mix that we have here, I guess, although I feel like things might be changing. I don't know. Maybe you guys feel differently, but okay. Carmelita says, we still waiting on Deidre's violent threats evidence from the convention. Yeah, we really are. We're also waiting for those. Remember the blatant displays of white supremacy by Holly Richardson, also known as Holly on the Hill. That's another certified liar. She still hasn't produced that evidence. Sanjalin says, "Oh, but what about the new Dignity Index?" That's my message to the Dignity Index. Like, disagree better. Anyone have Goud's address? I'll mail in talcum powder. So I got white powder in the mail. Won't be a lie. That'd be really funny. But like I said, my address is pretty public. It's a very weird situation because I actually blocked. You can't, if you go onto Google Maps, you actually can't see my house. I got it blurred out. But then it is what it is. Like, whatever. I mean, that's life. I figured nobody really wants to come out to Riverton. And where I live, it's actually pretty, like, it's all quarter-acre lots and stuff. So everybody knows everybody. So I think if you were to show up and cause mayhem, someone would probably see you. Although I will say, somebody stole a trailer off of my driveway. And it was really weird because it had been sitting there for a couple of years. And I don't know where I went. And then I came home and I was like, oh, that's so weird. The trailer is missing. And the worst part is there's a camera on I have cameras on the house, but I couldn't figure out how to rewind the stupid footage. So I called the cops. They came. They took a report. I don't have any information about the trailer at all. So I was like, and it's not even mine. It was actually my ex's. He left it here. So I'm like, okay, we don't have a VIN number. We don't have a license. I had nothing. I got nothing on this thing. I can't. And he's the one that actually knew how to rewind the thing, but we couldn't figure out the passwords. We're never able to rewind the footage. That's so weird. Okay, sorry. That's a really strange story. Okay, so anyway, we got the courts thing. I had something else I just thought of. Oh, here's one. Okay. Oh, okay. Congressional District 4. That's a good goal. Susan's goal is to score -1 on the dignity index. Oh my God, that's awesome. Oh, I scored 0. Thank you. Yes. Apparently, according to True Sleuth, I got a 0 on the dignity index. Sophie, I'm going to beat you on this. Okay. So I think that my prediction is going to come true. I think some of you, if you've been listening to the show, I've been predicting for a while now that Burgess Owens will not run for re-election. I think I'm right. Well, I think I was right anyway. I knew I was going to be right because the reality is he's old. His colleagues actually don't respect him at all. He wanted to be the chair of the education committee, and they didn't vote for him. They voted for one of his a different Republican because they don't respect him. And so with the switch of the district, I was like, I already knew that he wasn't going to run, but I was like, there's no way. Like, why, like 76, 78, however old he is, why would he even bother with this? And then I was listening to Todd Weiler's podcast, and Todd said that after 5 years is when your pension vests. So then I was like, 100% he's not going to do it. So I heard from someone that they've heard the same thing. He's not running. Dan McKay apparently is going to run for the House seat. And then I think, like I've been saying, I think Candace Prucci is going to run too. So it's going to be a very, very exciting race. I don't even think I'm going to vote in it. That's what I knew. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe one of them will convince me that they're the ones that we really need. I guess maybe you got to think about it like kind of how Dan said it during the mayor race. Like if you vote for Tani, I will resign from the state senate. I don't know. Maybe Candace can say, if you vote for me, my husband will resign from the Riverton City Council, and then we'll move to DC. That might be a benefit to everybody in Utah. She can't accuse gay men of make false accusations of sexual harassment anymore. She's in DC. They'll eat her up there. Okay, so let's talk spending. I had put this out a little while ago. I think it's kind of relevant right now because I've seen some kind of stuff floating around about spending issues. And here you go. So like per capita spending is probably how you should be looking at this. So, as many of you know, I actually grew up in Illinois, super majority Democrat state. That place has gone nuts. When I was growing up, it was actually kind of it used to go back and forth. The one kind of commonality that Illinois always had is that every governor, regardless of party, seemed to go to jail after their term. Very corrupt place, but openly corrupt. Utah, I think, is actually more corrupt. It's just all in the shadows. But they actually, ironically, they spend less money per capita than Utah does. Kind of interesting, right? They have a much bigger population than we do, but they only spend in 2025 $4,343 per capita state budget. Utah is at $8,790 per capita state budget. And this is what I'm going to say too, is that Illinois actually has more people living in rural areas than we do. And so that's something for people to think about. Is like we have about 10% of our population is really rural. 90% of it is not. It's really suburban, I would say. It's like we have a couple cities, Salt Lake City, Ogden, and then the rest of this place is suburban. So, I actually think we should have lower spending per capita at the state level than what you see in a place like Illinois. Because if you've ever been to Illinois, once you get outside the Chicago area, it is rural. I mean, farmland, real farmland. Like that's beautiful country, actually. It's I miss it sometimes. It's flat, cornfields as far as the eye can see, the friendliest people in the world. Yeah, sometimes I miss it, if I'm honest about it. Okay, so anyway, I just want to put that out there. It's like when you hear about spending stuff, think about we are actually at an elevated spending level, and we need to see spending cuts across the board in order to help make the state more affordable for families, because I know it's a big thing. I'm seeing some interesting comments. Let's see what people are saying here. So Jensen says a more conservative person may have a chance under the new district since it's deeper red. Actually, this is a good point. This is one thing I will say is if you were going to change the maps, the legislature's map C was actually a bad choice, I think, because what it did is it set up 2 districts that likely would flip next year. It had an R+2 district and an R+6 district, I think. On the trajectory that we are on right now, I suspect both of those would have flipped to Democrats. And in fact, I think the Democrats were salivating over that. They'd have Ben McAdams, and then there's another guy they're talking about. McMuffin. Evan McMuffin was going to be the other one. So, like, you know, then you have to think about the riddle, though, if you have that. Evan McMuffin, Ben McAdams. I assume what's his face? What is that guy? You know, the football player guy? He's like high up in the Blake Moore. And then I assume Celeste Molloy. Let's see, of those 4, how many gays would be in Utah's congressional district? It's a riddle. Okay. So he said, so I agree with Jensen, actually. The CD4 is pretty conservative. And then Susan Berta says they'll be going up against Ben McAdams, Kathleen Reeby. No. Those 2 are running in CD1. That's the blue district. That's the super blue district. Disagree Better says, but who though, Jensen? That's a good question. Susan Beretta says, the Democrats, no idea, Butter. You have to be borderline insane to run against the establishment. Well, that's the point. It's also gross. Do you have any idea what types of attacks they would do on you if you ran against them for those positions? Okay, hold on. I'll get the map up so we can look at this. But I'll just say this. I actually think if there's someone out there looking to run for CD4, give me a call because I have some ideas on how to do this. I think that you have to run a race that's like easy to understand where you can attack Candace Perucci and Dan McKay. Because they're both establishment, you know. I mean, Dan McKay, I think, actually has more issues. He'll have a bigger uphill climb than Candace will in this. Okay, let me pull up the map. Oh, I'm getting this. I gotta find the map. Hold on. Okay, here's our map. Let me share the map. Okay, so this is the map. So this is CD1 this is the middle one, right? So that's what that's gone. That'll be a Democrat seat. I don't know. Someone should run for it though. In that one, if you're a Republican and you want to run, I think you got to check a bunch of boxes, right? Okay, thanks, Mr. Producer. Mr. Producer, Blake Moore is worthless and he is out for today. He's got a meeting. So, but I'll finish the show. Thank you. So if you look at this map, though, so for D1, that's going to go to a Democrat. If you're a Republican running there, I actually think you need to be lefty, and then you got to be like you got to be all the things like, you know, you got to probably be gay, like gay or trans. Trans. If you can find a trans Republican, preferably I would think male to female. Because you need to be a little bit crazy, and in a relationship with a woman, so then they can say they're lesbian, preferably a racial minority. Then maybe you could win D1. So that's how I think for a Republican for D1. For D4, if you want to run against Candace Perucci and Dan McKay, I think the way you do it is you run on number 1. I'm running because I want to actually do like America First policies, and that means that we're going to cancel H-1Bs, OPTs. OPTs are when student visas are converted into work visas, so these students can stay forever, basically. J-1s and all temporary worker visa programs, so that your children aren't having to compete against foreigners for jobs. That's one thing I would say. Out here, I do think there might be some appeal to that. So that'd be one thing I would do. Number 2 is, and by the way, if Candace and Dan McKay try to respond and say, oh, well, we support that too, you can be like, well, why haven't you done it yet? The University of Utah literally hires H-1B visas. Like, if you guys really were opposed to it, you would stop the state government from hiring anyone with an H-1B, right? Susan, Dan McKay is going to run in D4. So this one's a Republican district. It's going to be like the southern half of Salt Lake County, basically. So South Jordan, Riverton, parts of Sandy. No, McKay and Perugia are in D4, if you look at this map. So, and so basically, you would say you didn't take care of it. You have, like, we still have H-1Bs working in state government here. If you really were against it, you would stop it, right? So that'd be one. Then I would also do it based on illegal aliens. There's a big Harriman. There's the place is full of illegals. And so I'd be like, we need a full crackdown on this to get these people to leave. We want them gone because they're taking your jobs, right? Because your kids now can't go into construction. They're having to compete against illegals. They can't really go into a lot of jobs because illegals fill those jobs. We need to crack down on that. And so I would like to run so we can crack down on that. Ending the wars, right? Because the reality is if you have children, and let's say you live out here, you have 5 or 6 kids. If we keep going down these paths where we're just like making war all over the place, like Ukraine, and putting a risk of like a world war situation, your kids are going to be going to war. So I would, okay, let's see if we go. Oh yeah, Jensen's right. You don't have to live in a district to run when it's federal. That's right. You can like I don't think any of them, like Celeste Malloy might be the only one that, well, kind of lives in her district, because I think when she first ran, she didn't. Like she lived in DC, but whatever. Maybe now she lives in her sister's house or something. Kennedy might live in his district right now. Blakemore does not live in his district. He lives in Salt Lake City. He's a fraud. And Burgess Owens doesn't live in CD4. He lives, I think, in 3 actually. So just they don't actually have to live in their district. So, but I think that if you're Candace and you're Dan McKay, you would just run in D4 because it's a Republican district, right? And you actually live in it. Like Riverton is in D4, and they both live in Riverton. If I were them, that's what I would do. But anyway, I would actually run to the right of them. So that let me hurry. I have a couple of other ideas on this. Give me a second. Let me pull this up because it's kind of interesting topic. Okay, here we go. So ban H-1Bs, crackdown on illegals, fighting inflation by cutting government spending and subsidy programs. And you're going to have to explain to people how subsidy programs are all actually keeping prices high. So for example, rentals. If you are giving everybody a subsidy for rent, the rental prices won't fall. Right. And they have multiple programs for this. I was reading recently that HUD has some program for like people that develop apartment buildings get some sort of a subsidy to do it, which is going to, of course, it's going to make it so they can charge higher rents. In fact, they're going to charge higher rents to soak the subsidy up. That's how this always works. And so if you want prices to drop, pull the subsidies, prices will drop because they're going to want to fill the apartments regardless. So that's something that's I think you have to explain that to people so they understand it. That, like I said, no more wars. So I think if you're on those 4 issues, ending H-1Bs, OPTs, J-1s, and all other temporary visas, crack down on illegal immigration, right? We want to get them, and here's the thing, you're going to be dealing with a population that has been taught that they have to allow illegals to flood their schools so that their children, even if it negatively impacts their children, because that makes them good people. So you're kind of fighting against that. But I think when you start to explain it to people, because I had a neighbor come to me and he said something like this, well, Goud, I mean, I don't care about the ones that are just working hard and stuff like that. And I was like, you don't? I mean, those ones are actually taking jobs that could go to your children. Right. So like, let's say that your son or daughter wants, instead of going to college, they want to go do construction work. Well, they can't do it now because there's an illegal doing it who's going to undercut their wages. And here's the thing. It's not even just the wage piece of it. This is what no one understands. It's the compliant piece of it. Foreign cultures are very compliant. And so an Indian culture is like, I know this because of Indian culture, like people like me, I'm an outlier in Indian culture. I would call my parents up during COVID and be like, okay, like the mask thing is bullshit. Oh, sorry, maybe I shouldn't swear, sorry. But, or don't take the vaccine. I call my whole family up. I was like, please don't take the vaccine. I am telling you it is bad for you. It is poison. These people are evil. And they all were like, what? Like, this guy's crazy. Because I'm totally outside of what is normal for Indian culture. Indian culture is very compliant. People do not speak up. Well, you know, a couple of years later, my parents were like, you know, you were right about it. And I don't want to be right. That was my whole point to them. But like, I think they were uncomfortable with having this son that has a loud mouth. And that compliance piece is difficult to deal with because like the culture teaches you to be compliant. It teaches you to listen to people that are your elders and respect people. And I think like when you have to kind of overcome that, right? But that's what employers like. Employers like these foreigners because they're not going to complain. They're not going to file a discrimination suit when someone fires them. They're not going to complain when they have to work extra hours. They're not going to ask for overtime. They're going to ask for time off to take care of their kids. They're not going to ask for time off for the holidays. That's why employers prefer foreigners over Americans. It's not just the wages. It's everything that goes along with it. And so you cannot compete against that. And so like all of this flooding of America with foreigners constantly, you cannot compete against that. And that's why all these other industries, though, are becoming bigger. Like everything connected to government or protected is what's becoming big. So suddenly government workers, that's all we hear about, right? Oh, the government, if we don't have government workers, the society won't run anymore. Okay, I guess. I'm actually pretty sure it'll run fine. But, you know, but people want those jobs because they go into a private sector company and they get H-1Bs and they get replaced. So we really actually have to get a handle on this and shut it down. And anyway, that was my point to my neighbor. I was like, look, they're competing against your kids. You're the one I don't have kids. So I don't even, you know, honestly, on a really basic level, it doesn't affect me in any way, shape, or form. If you have tons of illegals here, I'm a lawyer. I have to be licensed here to practice. Illegals aren't going to be competing against me. I have no issues. There's nothing they can do to me. In fact, I could benefit me. I could go hire them to clean my house, mow my lawn, do stuff like that. But I actually care about the fact that you have kids. You have 5, 6, 7, 8 kids. I think that's wonderful. But they need to be able to build a future in this state. They need to be able to go and get a job that they can make a livable wage on. Any job. They shouldn't have to go to college to get that job. Like I want them to be able to have the option that like they graduate from high school and they say, you know what, I want to take some time. I don't want to go to college. You know, I want to go do construction. I want to start my own business. I want to be my own person. And we need to make that possible for them without them having to compete against foreigners who are stealing their opportunities from them. Anyway, so I think if you're going to run in one of these races and you want to run against the establishment, you need to run to the right of them and be able to make these types of arguments and do it in a way that doesn't come off as being, you know, like, unfortunately, sometimes it can come off this way as being racist. So you just got to kind of like, you have to thread the needle and make it not about race because it's really not. So when you say, for example, I want to ban H-1Bs, it is inevitable. Inevitable. Someone's going to say, oh, you want to do that because you don't want Indians coming here, right? But really, the answer to that is no, it has nothing to do with that. It hurts Americans of all races, including Indian Americans. For example, I have 2 nephews. You know, they're 10 and 11, but one day they're going to enter the workforce, and their connection to India is tenuous at best. But like, if they want to get a job or something, and they can get replaced by an H-1B person too, because they're Americans. I mean, it's not a race issue, but so we need someone that can actually get up there and like speak to that. Okay. Susan says, oh, McKay and Peru's here in 4. Yeah. And then Carmelita says, thanks to those student visas, we ended up with Carlos Moreno and Alejandro Puy. I don't know how to say his last name. Okay. Anyway. Okay, I got one more thing for you guys here. I thought this was interesting. It was from Tucker Carlson. And this actually was it's an interesting statement about where we are headed. I don't think we're headed anywhere good right now, so let's all be real about this. Okay, hold on. Let me share this tab, and we'll listen to this.
Are just SOL. We've got 1 million lawyers and a little fewer than 1 million lawyers in the United States, and a lot of them are just SOL. You can displace farm workers. What are they going to do about it? You can displace factory workers. They'll just kill themselves with drugs and fast food, which they have done. And you'll feel sort of guilty, but then ignore it. If you do that to lawyers and nonprofit sector employees who I lived around in DC, you will get a revolution. And I mean that. I'm dead serious. Where did Paul Pot come from? There's never been a revolution that wasn't fomented by frustrated members of the sort of insurgent class.
Yeah, exactly.
It's totally true. Sub-aristocrat, but the striving class, the most repulsive people there are, I think we'd fair to say, but also the most intent on getting what they want. And if you put them out of business, I mean, I'm not joking at all. I think
we're seeing this,
could get unstable.
We're seeing this already, and one could argue that the Mamdani election surge may be the result of young people coming out of colleges that were in that exact same situation.
Exactly.
Striving elite, and they don't have an on-ramp.
And they were told that if they take on $400,000 of debt, they'll end up making a good living and progressing in life, buying a home, and all of that turned out to not be true.
We've got one.
Well, so I think there's some truth to what he's saying there, that, you know, like these lawyers and these nonprofit workers and these types of activists are actually very dangerous. I mean, they're right now, if you look around the country, they are leading basically an insurrection against the federal government in all of the blue states, right? You see it in California, you see it in Illinois. I don't feel like the Trump administration is actually fully handling this appropriately yet. They actually are allowing judicial supremacy, meaning a district court makes a decision and they're listening to it and they're appealing it. And it is my view that, again, each branch of government has an independent obligation to interpret the Constitution. They swear an oath to it. And when district court judges, first of all, are not even a co-equal branch. The only co-equal part of the judiciary is the Supreme Court. And if they make a decision that is illegal, I think the executive branch is well within their rights to ignore it. And I do think when it comes to a lot of what's been going on, that they should be ignored. So, but, you know, like, we're not getting that. Again, even at the national, to the point of, like, we have these beta males that run the Utah legislature, the Congress is exactly the same. We're not like the Democrats. The Democrats put in real activists into every position. These people they do not F around, right? They're there. They will sacrifice their political career to accomplish the goal that they were elected to do. The Republicans it's like they're all there to grift and make money. It's disgusting. And I don't know that we'll ever actually solve it with our primary voters are part of the problem. I don't think they pick people that are actually going to go and they're going to do the fight for you and they're willing to sacrifice the position. Because at the end of the day, let's say you got elected to Congress or something, I don't want you there for the rest of your life anyway. You should just be going there to accomplish the goal, get the goal done. And then let's say, you know, like, you have more goals as you go along, fine, that's great. But if you end up losing because you accomplished your goal and it's going to take some time for people to understand why it was the right thing, that's okay. It should be okay. But we don't have the people to understand, like, that long-term piece of this. And maybe that these people who run for office don't explain it well. The left seems to understand it. I mean, they get like full-on psychos in there. And they will sacrifice their position in order to get the job done. Obamacare was a great example of that. Think of how many of them lost after that. I think they were okay with doing that because they had a goal. The goal was to set up this system that would fail so that we'd end up with Medicare for all, which is probably where we'll end up at the rate we're going. Jensen says, it seemed Trump sparked a war, but is unwilling to do what it takes to win the war. Correct. Very much. True sleuth. Most Republicans are in office as a business strategy. Correct. And actually at the state level, you can see that. It's really funny. So I haven't had time to dig into this, but there are a lot of areas where we could really do some interesting digging. One is like the businesses that our people in the state legislature have, because like you'll see these connections where they're a legislator and then they're representing the point, which is kind of weird. Like they're also passing legislation to benefit the point, or and things like that. Where if we dig, I think we'll see that there's a lot of corruption going on, and it's being kind of like masked as if it's like, oh, I'm just a good lawyer, and so sure. It's more like you're getting it because of the connections, and now you're going to go pump more money into it because they're sending you money so that you can represent them in whatever litigation they have. But so I think a lot of the business and the development is being driven by this, right? You have the legislators, a lot of them are developers. And so they're going around trying to override our zoning laws and things like that because it benefits them personally. And so that's like where we are. Okay, well, we got a minute left. Thank you very much. I am your host, Goud. I appreciate you listening to the Goud Crowd. We are on every Monday night from 5 to 7 p.m. So please tune in. Next week, like I said, we'll have on Mike Carey, and we'll discuss housing issues. He's really good on that. In 2 weeks, we'll have on Monica Wilbur and Natalie Klein to discuss education issues. And so that's all I got for this week. You can listen to us again on kmmu.org and then Utah Main Street Media. Okay, you can listen to us on my Goud for Utah X handle, the Main Street Media Utah handle. Main Street Media is Rumble and YouTube, and kmmu.org. So follow us, like us, share us, spread the word. If you have any tips in the meantime, please feel free to send them to me. I do pay attention to everything you guys send, and I will see you next week. Thanks, guys.